So I'll be doing a live walkthrough of certain parts of our website. And I did mark some of the questions in the question and answer box that I'll answer them live. So this is starting with the EDDMapS website. So I'm going to be talking about the different tools we have for reporting. Some of them are better for certain people. Some of them are better for others. One of the things that Chuck mentioned was we're going to be, in the next probably month or so, having a whole new training page available. Some of those materials that'll be available will be things like this: EDDMapS app versus the EDDMapS Pro app. Which app should I use to record invasive species? So this is all about figuring out the best tool for you to use in the field. Now, as Chuck mentioned, we've got some other apps like the I've Got One app, we've got WildSpotter, but I'm just going to talk about some of the differences between, the EDDMapS app and the EDDMapS Pro app. And then Jerry and Kevin and Tristan will talk later about more in-depth walkthroughs of these apps. So, the EDDMapS app, it has a field guide. It's much more geared towards trained volunteer citizen scientists, casual observers, things like that. Whereas the EDDMapS Pro app is much more geared towards professionals, land managers, things like that. And it does not have a field guide in the app. It's just figuring out how much effort do you have to put into your reporting based on the needs your program, maybe your state reporting requires, or if you are, just taking a walk outside and you happen to see something. If you're taking a walk outside and you happen to see something, the EDDMapS app is a much better tool for you to use. It's much easier to just download it and intuitively figure out how to use it. But it also has fewer features compared to the EDDMapS Pro app. We worked with Kevin and Jerry and Aaron and our partners in Minnesota, our partners in other states and programs, to really figure out the different features that these groups need for the EDDMapS Pro app. But there's a lot of similarities between them. Both of them you can report as a point or a polygon. You can report negative records. You can do some of the same things, but also there are some differences. So that's those two apps just broadly. Now, anybody can report on the website. So as Chuck mentioned, we've revamped some of our website. That includes this top bar up here. You'll notice that this top bar has changed if you're familiar with our website and you pay attention to the top bar. But report sightings has pretty much been one of the most important parts of the EDDMapS website since EDDMapS started. So if we go to report sightings, the first thing it asks is, what type of thing are you reporting? Are you reporting a plant? Are you reporting an insect, or something that the general public would just go, an insect? So insects also includes spiders like the drawer spider. It includes mites, ticks, things like that. Then you have your fungi and diseases, so fungi, bacteria, viruses, things like that. And then also at the end, we've got wildlife, and we do have quite a lot of wildlife reporting in certain areas. I'm going to click on plants because we probably have a majority plant audience here. And then I'll click on Georgia because I am in Georgia, and that makes sense for me. So at the top, we have a notification here: red fields are required. I did see a comment about colorblind access. We do have colorblind being as a consideration for a lot of things. We do talk about colorblind maps when we talk about custom maps and things like that. But I was not specifically involved in choosing the various colors, so I don't know if this is like a colorblind safe red, but right now it's at least a different color than the black. So that should be at least more easily discerned right there. So red fields are required. So as you'll notice going down this page, as I go down it, not a lot of fields are in red. So it's asking your species. Now we do have higher taxonomic reporting available. You can report at some genus level. We do have some other data that's even higher than that in working with Florida. We have some, it was a monkey. Somebody saw a monkey. Not sure what kind of monkey it was, but we have no native monkeys in the US, so it belongs here. You just start typing it in, it'll start auto completing what it thinks you're looking for. Infestation. So someone asked, what's the difference between positive and negative? When you're reporting an original report, so the first time you think this population has been reported, you have three options. Positive, I saw it. Negative, I looked for it, did not find it. And treated, I looked for it, found it, and performed some sort of management activity. So if you're talking about a plant, you could say, well, you know, it was pulled, it was mowed, it was treated with some sort of herbicide, so on and so forth. All of pretty much most of the fields or options within fields have these little question marks next to those. Those are tooltips. So if you hover your mouse over them, or if you're on some sort of touch screen, if you touch the question mark, a little piece of information will show up to help you figure out what's going on with that field, with that option of fields. Observation date, that's another required field. Defaults to the current date, but you can change that. And then the rest of this infestation section, this all changes depending on what type of species you said you're reporting. So I picked plant, so I'm seeing infested area, survey area, habitat, density, abundance, plant description, and then damage. So that was another question we had about recording new populations that are damaged because maybe there's something eating it or affecting it in some way that makes it so there might be a new biocontrol, or it might be being affected by a biocontrol. So on the website, we do have damage as an option, so that can be recorded. But if I were reporting an insect or a disease, these would all change to different options based on the fields that the partners we've worked with have said are important. If we scroll down, as you see, I picked Georgia. It fills in Georgia. I could then pick my county. So there's a lot of counties in Georgia. I don't know if everyone knows, but we have the second most number of counties in the US. So I picked Tift County because that's where I am. My next options are, I could either manually put in the latitude and longitude, and these are decimal degrees. Every now and then we come across someone who's having trouble. It's because they're not putting in decimal degrees. That's something that you can look up if you're not familiar with the different types of coordinate systems. Or, and this is probably an easier option, if you interact with the map, and there's some information up here about how to use the map, but you pick one of these options at the top of the map. If I want to drop a point, it'll put the coordinates there, or if I want to draw a line, it'll put the centroid of that there, and you double click to end the line. Or I can clear the map and I can draw a polygon. And if I draw a polygon, or if I pick a line, it actually fills in this infested area up here. So that's a fun thing there. Something new we added, I think in the last month or so, maybe a couple months, is this upload KML option. So if you have a file with one shape in it representing this individual population, you can select choose file, and you can pick your KML, and it'll put it on there. So that was a new thing that we added in the last couple of months. And it puts in again, the latitude and longitude, centroid area, and it would fill in Tift if that was a different county it had picked. Further down, so if you want to put description of the location, you can put that. I always try to really mention this with every presentation I give. Private talks about the public being aware of the coordinates for this population. So it's automatically set to no, but you can switch that to yes. So if I switch this to yes, that means when a verifier reviews this record, they say, ah, yes, this is a fantastic record. This is a wonderful record. I'm going to make it publicly available. Everyone should know about this observation. If I clicked yes, that means that it will only show up at a county level map. It will only show up in county downloads. So no one will ever know the coordinates of this except for me, the verifier who reviews the record, because they need to know if I'm reporting a aquatic species in the middle of a parking lot, or if this record is part of a project, the project admins, you are allowing them to know things like the coordinates. So that's what private does is it allows for reporting on private property, but not letting the public know this is exactly where something is. You can, on the website, upload up to 5 images and provide additional information and comments, who identified it if you had help with that, and if a voucher was made, if it's in a herbarium somewhere, you can note that as well. And then you would submit your record, and what Chuck talked about in his presentation about it being reviewed by verifiers and that whole process, that's what happens next. So this is reporting an individual occurrence through this form. We do have other ways data comes in, as Chuck mentioned. So one other way that data comes in is through the apps. So let me just go ahead and cover those before I forget. Now they're going to be covered in much more detail in a little bit, but on the app, there's a lot less information available for you to add to a record, but all of that very important information, all that required information is still there, as well as a few of the additional options. You can still add comments, you can add images, you can add some of that infestation information. And again, in the apps, you can say if it's a positive, a treated, a negative, and so forth. So then if I go back here, so that's reporting like one record at a time through the website, through the apps. So if I wanted to, say, upload a file, as a lot of the people to submit files of data you've been collecting either through another piece of software, or you have old data that you just didn't know there was someone out there who cared, and I care. There are now 2 ways to get to the place to submit bulk data. So you can click on either from the home page where we have a bunch of those tools listed, or through the tools page itself. You can click data upload, and this will take you to the place where you can contribute data. So if you click upload data, it'll ask you for a batch name. That's mainly for you to be able to keep track of things. It'll ask you for a reporter name, and then it'll provide you a place to upload files. It's highly advised that the files be shape files, geodatabases, or Excel type files. KML files I have a lot of trouble with, just because a lot of times they're not files originally created as a KML file. They're usually converted from something else to KML, and a lot happens in between there with regards to formatting. One of the things that is now available to me, and maybe in the future will be available to some of our state partners, is the data import tool. So what I can do with some of the files that are sent to me is I can take those files, usually after some amount of data checking and potentially manipulation of converting formats and things like that. I can put this file that is sent to me, and again, potentially reformatted certain things, and put it in here. This will allow a whole bunch of checks I usually do on my own to be performed automatically. It'll tell me the things that still need to be fixed, or some issues that may still exist. And then once those are fixed, I can put it into our database this way. And so this is something that has made some of the uploading of files go faster than if I did it the way I was previously doing this. So this is something we've talked about like at some of our other meetings. And so this is an important advancement that was made first for me. And then as I kind of figure out all the different things that I'm, keeping track of, for it says this, it means that needs to be fixed. Once those error messages are all figured out, then this tool could be made available to some of our state partners if they have people that they can assign for the state to be uploading files this way. So another thing Chuck mentioned, the API tool. I just wanted to show what that looks like real quick. The iNaturalist data coming in via the API. So we do get data coming in via API. Mainly right now, it's iNaturalist records. We have talked about some other types of data coming in that way. So the data coming in via from iNaturalist, this is kind of what it looks like. And I'm a quote unquote verifier for everything. So I see everything, but this also shows you some of the records that are coming in and what that kind of looks like to a verifier. Again, the verifiers are the ones who decide that this research grade iNaturalist records that come in, should they actually make their way into EDDMapS or should they not? And if they should go into EDDMapS, do they need to be reviewed individually? Like with calorie pair, there's a lot that's planted. Do we need planted records? Or do we just need examples of escaping feral, calorie pair trees? So they get to make those decisions on how they want the data coming from iNaturalist to be handled. We do have some Ag Pest Monitor data coming in by API. So Ag Pest Monitor is another system that's kind of where that corn project Chuck was talking about exists. And so just to show you, they are also in a lot of cases using the web for contributing data. Their forms can look very different because of the way that they collect data and eventually how they want that data to be displayed. So in this case, this is essentially trap data. They have a site they're going to be visiting, and they're going to have so many traps at that site, and they're going to fill in that data as they examine those traps. Now, I'm talking about this in the aspects and the kind of context of agriculture, but this can be very important for something like putting out traps for feral hogs or for tegus or something like that. So this type of concept could be adapted for other types of projects, or even just still in the context of insects. There are traps for emerald ash borer. There are traps for other types of invasive insects. So working with these different groups, we've fixed these forms to fit their specific needs. Okay. And then finally, what I wanted to talk about with regards to data coming in are revisits. Now, Jerry and Kevin are going to talk about data coming in through revisits through the EDDMapS Pro app. And one of the things that Aaron is probably going to also talk about is how those revisits kind of changed the dashboard and changed the map and changed what the data looks like to the people collecting the data and to the people who subsequently look at that data. So revisits can happen through the EDDMapS Pro app, but there are a couple other ways that revisit data can occur. So if I go back to the home page, and I'm just going to scroll down and I'm just going to pick a record here. So looking at an individual record, and this one has either private selected, so there's no map, or this was entered as a county level record to begin with. At the top right, there is revisit record. That is a link. So I can click on that link and it will take me to a revisit form to revisit that exact record and say, this is what the status of that population is now. So that's one way to get to revisiting a record, and anybody can revisit any record. Otherwise, if I'm revisiting one of my own records, I might find it to be easiest to, in my EDDMapS, click on my reports, and every reviewed in public record has a revisit option. So I can say, oh, I want to revisit this calorie pair record of mine. They're everywhere, I swear. If I want to, I can click revisit. No, it looks the same because it's a very similar form. I can revisit this record now. And again, just fill out the information and click submit report. And there are some additional options of fields you might have seen, might not have seen before. And this just goes back to the different types of forms that our records can be submitted on. And then finally, another way that records can be revisited is if I go to, I'm still in my EDDMapS. If I click on EDDMapS Pro Tools, there's bulk revisit. So this was, I believe, a request from our Colorado partners, or at least they were most enthusiastic about this concept. If I click bulk revisit, and I always have to read the instructions because I just so rarely use this tool. It's mainly in these types of settings. Zoom in on the area on the map, click on the search icon to search for records in that area, and then draw a polygon around the records you want to revisit. So, oh, that's right. Zoom, zoom, zoom. So let's zoom in. Here's Fullwood Park again. So that Fullwood Park is where I before had that KML drawn. So search. And then let's say that I was in Fullwood Park recently, and I just made sure that everything in here was treated. So table below has filtered to only include the selected points. So if I scroll below, these are the records that are included in that area. Also, we have where you can upload a KML, similar to what I showed you before, and that'll be the polygon that's selecting the records. I can pick the records that I'm saying I revisited. So let's just pick everything in the table. And this is the bulk revisit form for those records. I can say I treated it on this day, and these are the comments I have about that particular treatment. So this is a way, if you have, say, a crew going out to a particular park, wildlife area, just doing, treatments along roadsides, you can upload those polygons, or you can draw those polygons. And instead of having to do one-by-one revisits, either through the web or through the apps, you can essentially lasso an area and say those are the records that were revisited on that day. Those are the different ways that you can essentially get data into EDDMapS, either one by one or several records at a time, either through through bulk uploads or, in this case, bulk revisits. I have about 4 minutes, I believe, so that should be time for questions.
Thanks for giving us that overview. I definitely learned a lot about how we can report and all the updates. So we did have a question asking whether it's easy to pull data for reporting purposes. So if you could create a static map with the project activities and data that you could download, is that something people can do?
So that sounds like requesting data, and that'll be a topic I get into later when I talk about the various kind of tools and training and features and all that. So if I go to the EDDMapS homepage, or if I go to the tools page, there's EDDMapS query, and that's where you can download verified data. So that, if in case that person can't stick around for my next presentation, that's where you can query the data that you are interested in to download it to do your own reporting. Another feature that I'll talk about in a little bit is the dashboard. So on the EDDMapS dashboard, I think I have one up somewhere. The dashboard is a place where you can filter the data less finely, so there are less options for filtering, but you can get graphs and maps and all that kind of stuff and download those graphs and charts and statistics and everything into a PowerPoint itself directly. So those are two options really for kind of getting data out, getting records out, or getting a summary of the records out. So Mark, you're saying, I'll admit I still use treated for records I didn't treat, but I know they have been treated by partners. Is this cool, or should I just do revisit and report damage? If you know it's being treated, like it's treated, it's okay to use that it's been treated. If you just suspect something has been treated, that I would say just do a normal positive revisit, and you can note in the comments it's possible it was treated. But if you know something has been treated and you know that person isn't using EDDMapS or reporting to EDDMapS, it's okay if you're essentially kind of reporting that it's treated on their behalf. And so someone did ask about bulk reporting. So the bulk reporting option is really only in the context of that bulk upload. So again, that data upload I was telling you about, we don't have like where you can drop a whole bunch of points in one go and say all of these different points are something. You can report a polygon and say this area is infested. There is an option, and Tristan or Jerry and Kevin might talk about it, where if you are reporting plants through the app, you can report multiple plants in a polygon, but you have to be really careful with that because it's all of the information on that one record for those multiple plants is being applied to all of those records that go in, because each record of EDDMapS in EDDMapS is one species at one location on a particular date by a person. So if you're reporting at a vacant lot that there are 10 invasive species there, which is highly possible, I've seen those around our town. You want to just say on this vacant lot, so in this polygon, there are these 10 species. Every other piece of information that you apply to that record is being applied to those individual 10 records. You can, after the record's saved and it's in the upload queue, you can edit each individual record if you want to, but again, you need to make sure you do that to make sure that the information is accurate.
Thank you. It's great. So we now do have our 10-minute break. So we're going to pull up some slides, some updates for everyone to watch during the break.